All right. Good evening to everybody. Good evening. Good evening. How's everybody doing? Give it a little bit of time. And then we're going to jump into my subject. And what I try to do is I try to come on every Monday and every Friday, just so you guys know, so we can get into some dialogue. I don't mind if you comment on this. I don't care if you disagree, you leave, anything on this live. I'm okay with that. I have tough skin, believe me. I have tough skin. So every Monday around the evening time or afternoon time, I try to get on, and then every Friday around the same time, I try to get on. In the meantime, just taking care of my kids, enjoying life, and loving my wife. So I'm gonna go ahead and jump into this a little bit. Did it in a different area this time instead of my car. So I'm gonna go ahead and jump into this a little bit. So the title of the video is Oppression in the Big House. And what God started to talk to me about today, or a little bit over the week, was there's a system of oppression that is being created to control how things move. And it's being controlled from the big house. If you've done your history or you've done your research, what will happen is you have a slave that works in the field. And as long as that slave that worked in the field was dedicated to their work, and they were dedicated to the vision of the master, and they were dedicated to the thoughts and the deeds of the master, so whatever the master said, if they were dedicated to that cause, what the oppressor, we're calling the master, would do is say, well, I'm going to move you from the field into the house, but you're still a slave. But I'm only going to set you free from working so hard. And so the entire time that that slave was in the field, that slave was responsible for bringing in income. And that income was accredited to the work that he did. So it moved the slave from working in the field that produced an income to now working in the house, still as a slave, as a butler. So now the slave is responsible for feeding the oppressor. The slave is now responsible for encouraging the oppressor. The slave is now responsible for believing in morals and ethics and values that don't line up with what the slave think because of the oppressor. Because the oppressor was responsible for dictating the value of each slave as they move from one place to the next. But what the slave understood in this process was my success of me and my family can go as far as this person is dictating. They're controlling the movements of what happened to my family. They're controlling the thoughts of what I think. But when I leave the big house and I go back to my family, I feel more free from being in bondage, from being in the house, so I speak my mind. I speak my mind against a system as long as I'm not in the system. But the moment I arrive back in the system, I follow protocols because somebody else is dictating my morals and how I move and how I succeed. And this is a person that we call the system of oppression. And what is happening in religion and what is happening in these cultures and people that are defining certain things as a theological point of view or theological perspective is many people are determining your success by how hard or how much effort you're putting into what you're doing. So what you're doing in the process of believing in that or agreeing with that is you're creating a mindset of oppression. Because as long as you're not in that set system or that house, you can conquer the world when you leave. Or you feel like you can at least go toe-to-toe with somebody when you leave. But when you come into a building or you come into a system, what you find yourself is acquiescing or giving into the protocols of this is just how it is. Nobody wants to rise up. Nobody wants to say anything. Why? Because the system is already set in place. And there's too many slaves that already believe that this system works. There's too many people that are going to disagree with you and out you out. There's too many people that believe if you are blind Bartimaeus and you begin to open up your mouth and you say something, everyone else will come against you. A mindset, a thought of oppression. You can't have what don't belongs to you. You can't enjoy the fruit of your labor. You can't inherit what already has been given to you. Someone will determine your success and the foundation of your growth based on their say-so. But what I do understand is that no man can set you free. Nelson Mandela didn't set them free. Mahatma Gandhi didn't set anybody free. Martin Luther King didn't set anybody free. But hear what I'm saying and where I'm going before you jump in and decide that, what are you talking about? Malcolm X didn't set nobody free. Hear what Jesus said. The truth will set you free. The truth. Jesus himself couldn't set somebody free. He said the truth will set you free. The truth in knowing who you are. The truth in knowing that out of your midst, there will arise one who will speak against the system. In your midst, there will be a one who begins to go against the grain of what doesn't make sense morally and ethically. But you have to watch yourself as you begin to understand who you are, as you're being set free. Because what begins to happen in this culture or this theology of what I call a culture is they will begin to tell you that you're a witch, you're a soothsayer, you're going against something, using Bible or using forms of scriptures to tell you that you're against or you're coming against the will of God. Why? Because the truth hasn't set you free. Why? Because you haven't done your own understanding of who you are in this earth. That you're chosen, you're set aside, that you're great, you're the head and not the tail, you're above and not beneath. That you're the lender and not the borrower. All these things are spoken over your life until you come into a system of oppression and they make you believe that none of these things work in this building. But when I leave here, I could practically use them in any other source but this building. That's a system of oppression. You spend days, you spend hours working in the field only to be graduated or to be acclimated to a position of being a glorified butler. You ain't inherit nothing but just a different position as a slave. Because a culture is set in place to instill in you to believe that it works this way. I love how Jesus did it when he stepped on the scene. What he says is, I'm going to take you, you come with me, and you come with me. I'm going to take as many as I can who's going to come with me. And all I want to do is I want to teach you some principles. And I want to show you the practical application of how these principles work. What you do with them is up to you. But what I want to do is I want to restore and I want you to believe that there is value in who you are since the foundation of the earth. That you are to be encouraged. I love what he told the disciples. He said, when you go to talk to somebody, when you go to give them the good news, don't take nothing with you. Don't take nothing with you. I know you're mans of wealth. I know that you work as a fisherman, a tent maker. I know all these things about you. I know you're a treasurer. I know you're a tax collector. I know all these things about you. But what I want you to do is I want you to meet them where they are. Stop telling people to come to where you are. I want you to meet them where they are. Get to know people for who they are. Get to know who is around you. Why? So that they may be able to do the same thing that you're doing. So that they may be able to graduate to a different understanding of how to be great, how to be successful. Where do you think all these people are coming from? These people that are rising up in the earth. All these people that are opening up their mouth. All these people that are making money hand over feet. All these people that are opening up their mouth and they're beginning to speak against a system or against an ideal or against a theology or theophany or whatever you want to call it. These are valued people in the eyes of God. And what has happened is they have realized that in this pandemic, they were under a system of oppression. They didn't believe in themselves. They couldn't believe for themselves. They couldn't think for themselves. They needed somebody to tell them what to do, where to go, how to wear it. You got people that want to show up for church events and they got to worry more about what clothes they're going to wear instead of thinking about the word that they're going to be taught or preached. All these things set in place. And I understand the protocols. You work at a job, you work at McDonald's, you got to wear a certain this, you got to wear a certain that. I get it. I understand it. But what we have done or what has happened is there has been a system that has been put in place to make you believe that if you do all of this, it's going to make you holy. If you do all of this, it's going to make you great. But I still can't find God. I don't go in the store looking for food because it's there. All I got to do is go pick it up. I don't go into a construction site looking for anything to pick up, to hammer to a nail. Why? Because it's already there. But I spent all these years in church screaming, shouting, rolling on the floor, trying to figure out where I'm going in life. And I still can't find God for myself. Something is not being taught right. Something is being put into somebody else's perspective. The worst thing can ever happen in a system of oppression is somebody maintenance your ignorance. When someone can control your ignorance, they can control how far you go. Your ignorance is being controlled. Your ignorance is being maintained. Your ignorance is being maintenance. I'm going to show you how to do this. I'm going to point you in the right directions. But then when I begin to question the right direction or the things you're doing, all of a sudden, that person is out of the will of God. So you're telling me that that person is not human anymore? Or are you telling me that person is only supposed to obey the master, the oppressor? Because the oppressor determines where you go. Here's what I heard. And I thought it was profound. And he said, the worst thing that can ever happen to an oppressor is an educated slave. When that slave finds out who he is and he finds his identity and he becomes educated enough to read, to write, what starts to happen is they call it rebellion. But what's actually happening is somebody is being set free. Somebody is finding a way to go against the system. From the Rosa Parks, going against the system. From the Nelson Mandelas, going against the system. These people found it in their mind that it is greater that I am set free through the knowledge of what I know than to stand here all my life wondering where I'm going. From the Frederick Douglass. And if you've done your history classes and you've been in school long enough, you know who I'm talking about. If those people were alive today and they spoke against some of the things that are happening in this culture or this system of oppression that is happening in religion, they will all be called witches. Why? Because they want to open up their mouth and they want to speak against something that just doesn't make sense. All you've done is take a mindset and a slave trade mentality and placed it somewhere else. And you tell people this is how we're supposed to live. And those people still looking for God. Now you got people trying to make money all kind of ways. But as long as they give you the money, you find it to be okay. And then you pray over it and say, well, I guess it was God. God is fed up. God is fed up. I'm here to tell you. And I'm here telling everyone who ever watched this, anyone who ever leave a comment. And like I said in the beginning, you could disagree with me or you could believe me. It doesn't matter. Leave a comment, like, share, whatever you decide to do. But what I am telling you is when you find out who you are, who the Son set free is free indeed. When you find out who you are, you have been made by the Spirit of God. When you find out who you are, created in the image and the likeness of God, stop trying to be somebody else's image. When you find out who you are, slavery became abolished. It became done with. They did away with it because people started becoming more educated. People started to become more aware that the system that has been going on for all these years, something needs to happen. And if we don't do nothing about it, or if we don't do something about it, there's going to be civil war. People are going to come against each other, all in the name of freedom. Now you're going to have a bigger issue because they outnumber you. You one person trying to control 50, 30, 100, 300, 5,000 people through a system. So I speak to every person. I speak to your mind and I tell you, your identity is greater than a work of your value. I know the Bible says that faith without work is dead, but what work? Are you telling me that you being somebody's butler is what you classifying as work? You're trying to tell me that you holding somebody's briefcase, driving somebody around, paying for somebody, all these things are considered work? Something's wrong here. There's a problem here. And what begins to happen is when you become a leader or you become a person of great value, of influence, you manipulate, or better yet, you do the same thing again. And you know what that person does? That person sits there and says, how am I supposed to keep up with this? I didn't think this is what I signed up for. Or I didn't think this is how I get to God. When the reality of it is God is standing there the entire time saying, this has never been my method. I came that you may have life and that you might enjoy it. I came to show you that anybody can be great. And I leave you with this. I love how Jesus, and I use Jesus because he's kingdom and what he taught was kingdom. I love what Jesus did. Everywhere he went, to the well, to the blind man, to the house, every place he ever walked in, every path he ever took, all he ever did was make impact. People didn't even know who he was. They didn't know who he was until he died. But everywhere he went, he made impact. And what he did was say, although I'm not here anymore, I'm going to give you the same access. I'm going to give you the same opportunity to do exactly what I did. Don't rejoice because the devils tremble at your feet, but rejoice because your name is written in the book of life. I have created everyone, every single person that's walking this earth to be able to make impact, to be able to look themselves in the mirror and believe that you're worth more than what somebody keeps telling you that you're worth. That you are more valuable than how the system keeps telling you to become valuable. I believe in you. Your worth and your value is the expression of God. So if you're working for somebody who is getting the expression, because I'm wondering now, are you trying to replace God by getting the value of people? Because God is wondering why my people are not expressing him. That when God looks, he wants to see what on earth represents him. But we have all these people controlled or in a system of oppression, believing that if they represent said leader, that they're representing God. You're taking the place of God on this earth. And God is saying, I don't see me being glorified. Where are my people that I've created, that I blew breath into their lungs, into their nostrils? Where are my people that I have called from the dust? Where are my people who are supposed to represent me on earth? He said, I left you gifts. I left you gifts for the edifying, for the equipping of the church. They're for the equipping, not the controlling of the church, but for the equipping of the church, so that they may bring them into the unity of the faith, for the equipping, so that people might be aware, so that people might know, so people might become what I told them to become. You are to equip, not to replace. You are to equip, not to control. All these systems that are being created. And hear what Jesus says, and the gates of hell shall not prevail. All these people trying to take the place of God. Having people to believe that if you please your set leader, you're pleasing God. And then when you're done pleasing your God, that set leader is telling you, go out there now and go find God and please him on your own time. So I'm here to encourage you and to speak life into you. Be what God has called you to be. You don't know what that is? Get equipped. Become what God has told you to become. You don't know what that is? Be equipped. But when that knowledge comes and that understanding comes, don't be afraid. Because if the slaves were afraid, we wouldn't be here today. Jesus died for a cause. Mahatma Gandhi died for a cause. Nelson Mandela was in prison for years for a cause. And you're just giving in to a cause. What will you stand against? So I tell you, who are you working for? Because if you don't hear God and you keep hearing your leader, then you know who you're working for. So I leave you with that. Blessing, peace, grace, mercy. All those things unto you. Babe, I really appreciate you coming on. I love you. And I'll catch you guys, like I said, on Friday, Monday and Friday. I load these videos. Please leave a comment, like, share, whatever you choose to do. I'm not afraid to talk to you, and I'll talk back to you. I love you guys. Be blessed. Be blessed.